Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Name and spell your last.
Heather Maxon, M-A-O-N.
And where do you live, ma'am?
Plainville,
And how long have you lived? How long have you been doing that?
about 4 years.
Ma'am, if I could direct your attention to January 28th into January 29th of 2000. Recall those dates?
I do.
And the weekdays.
Saturday, Friday, Saturday.
As far as the evening of the 28th, what?
I was with my boyfriend at the time, Ryan. We were out in Canton at local bars.
And your boyfriend Ryan, his last name is Nagel.
Correct.
And did he live in Canton at the time?
Yes.
And call about what time that you left to go out.
I don't remember, no. Sometime in the afternoon.
And who, if anyone, did you go with and Mr. Nagel?
Our other friend, Ricky
What's Ricky's last name?
Dantano,
And how do you know Ricky Danto?
through Ryan.
He's friends with your boyfriend at the time, Ryan.
Correct.
And at that time, in January 2022, how long had you and Ryan been dating?
I'd say about a year.
And did you know at that his parents, his siblings, things like that?
I did, yes.
And how many siblings did Ryan have?
2.
Brother and a sister?
Correct.
And what's the sister's name?
Julie,
Older or younger than Ryan?
younger.
Now, at some point you said in the afternoon or so you'd go out to correct.
Correct.
And do you recall where is it that you went?
We were at Sea of McCarthy's.
And how did you get to, well, prior to going to Sea of McCarthy's, where were you?
Ryan's in Canton.
And you got from Ryan's house to Sea of McCarthy's?
I don't remember, no.
What I'm asking is, do you recall, did you drive, did Ryan drive, and how did you?
To Sea of McCarthy's? I drove.
And do you recall, if you drove, do you recall,
I don't.
is that somewhere that you had been to before?
Yes.
Recall, generally speaking, into Sea of McCarthy's, where it was that the three of you went?
Can you rephrase the question?
Where within the established hall were you seated, at the bar or and how long a period of time were you at Sea of McCarthy's?
I don't recall.
Just sort of the three of you that were there?
Yes.
And fair to say you went out to a bar, and do you recall what you were drinking?
I don't remember. It was probably a beer of some sort.
And same for Ryan and same for Ricky. Do you recall what they were drinking?
I don't.
Typically drinking beer.
Yeah, I'd say so, yes.
So at some point,
Yes.
and do you recall where you went following Sea of McCarthy?
Club?
And is that in Canton as well?
Yes.
Or that you had been to before as well?
Yes.
And do you recall how you got from Sea of McCarthy's to the Hillside?
Ricky drove us.
And drove you in what?
His truck.
Or how big the truck was, or color, or anything like that?
I don't know. Ford, I believe.
And so Ricky's driving. Where is it that you and are within sort of the cab area?
Sitting in the passenger seat, and I was in the back seat.
You were seated in. Can you describe that as far as what kind of did the back of Ricky's truck have?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sure. Let me a little bit better. Back of Ricky's truck, were you in long seat, or is it cabin chairs, or?
One long seat.
Now, you get to the Hillside. You know about was that you
I don't remember.
and had obviously the Hillside as a bar as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you have drinks there?
Probably, yeah.
And at any point in time during the course of, do you recall about how long it was?
Don't recall, no.
Do you recall about what time it was that you left?
Late.
And during the course of the time that you were at the Hillside, as far as, was anybody from your Ricky overly intoxicated in any way that you observed?
No.
When you went to the Hillside, was it just the three of you again, or did you meet else that you?
Met up with us.
And so a group of friends?
A group, yep.
And do you know
Maybe 2.
so a couple other?
Correct.
And when you went to the Hillside, where did you go?
We went to pick Julie up from her friend's house.
And the friend's house that you were going to, is that someone that you knew?
No.
And is that a house that you had ever been to before?
No.
And as far as big rent,
Correct.
and as far as the seating arrangements that you described earlier, from Sea of McCarthy to the Hillside, what, if any, difference there between Hillside and the friend's house?
There was no difference. We were sitting in the same seats.
And do you recall, or do you know where that the location was?
Can you rephrase? I'm sorry.
Following leaving the Hillside, going to the friend's house, you've never been there before, correct?
Correct.
And having now gone to the friend's house to pick up Julie, where that friend's house is,
No.
was it still in the town of Canton?
Yes.
You recall anything about the route to,
No. All I know is that we were taking a left onto the street of the house, where the house is located.
so as you're approaching this is located, Ricky's taking a left onto the street?
Correct.
And what, if anything, do you recall about that time period when Ricky's taking the left onto the street?
Phrase the question.
Ricky's pulling up to the street.
Correct.
Is there a blinker or a directional that he uses prior to?
Recall.
And you're making a left-hand turn, is that correct?
Correct.
And as Ricky is making a left-hand turn, what, if any, other vehicles do you observe in the area at that time?
There was another vehicle coming from the opposite direction.
Can you describe that vehicle in any way, as far as size, shape, color, or anything?
Not the color, but it was definitely an SUV.
And as far as prior to either vehicle turning onto the road where his friends lived, what, if anything, did Ricky do with regard to the lights of the vehicle?
I'm sorry, I can hear you.
As you're pulling to the cars coming the opposite direction, what, if anything, did Ricky do the lights on the truck that you were in?
The lights on the truck we were in?
Yes.
Well, we let the other car that was coming from the opposite direction, we let them take a right onto the street first.
And yielded to them, what, if anything, did Ricky do to tell the driver that they could go ahead?
He could have flashed his lights or put his blinker on. I don't remember.
From this other vehicle, as far as the interior of the vehicle, as you're yielding to this vehicle taking a right, what, if anything, of people inside that other vehicle?
I've noticed a male and a female in the car.
And in the vehicle was the male and female that you observed situated.
Female was driving and the male was in the passenger seat.
And then beyond them being a male or female, what, if any, other sort of observations did you make of what they look like or anything like that?
No, I didn't make any other observations.
Let me ask you this way. Were they Caucasian?
Caucasian.
Older,
Yeah,
Caucasian female? Caucasian male?
correct.
And as far as age or anything like that, could you tell anything in regard to that?
Not really, no.
And as far as your sort of differentiation between versus female, what about them that made you sort of characterize them?
Characterize them as a male and a female?
Yes.
Long hair and short.
So that vehicle pulls onto the street that you're going,
Correct.
and then proceeds to make the left-hand turn.
Correct.
Now, as Ricky is driving down the street, his friend's house is, to be that you are making the turn, where does that go?
Was on the street outside a house.
And so as far as from the time that you're,
Thank you.
thank you both. So with regard to Ricky yields to that car direction and the time that you pull up to the house, in front of Ricky's truck for the entire time.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Did the SUV in front of you go to the same house?
Yes.
Okay. And when you get to the house, where was it that Ricky parked the truck in relation to the house?
Right up a little past the mailbox, past the driveway.
And when you make that turn from whatever street that is onto the street where the friend's house is, about how long that street did you go before Ricky pulled over in the area of that mailbox?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
And when Ricky comes to a stop in the area of that mailbox, can you describe the distance sort of between Ricky's truck and where the vehicle is in front of you?
We were parked right behind it, just a couple feet, maybe.
And during the time that you were outside of that friend's house, did that car stay still or move or something?
It just stayed still.
So your memory is that the vehicle was essentially in the same place in front of you the entire time that you were there?
Correct.
And from that sort of vantage point from behind the vehicle, damage or anything to the rear of the vehicle as it was in front of you?
I did not.
And at any point in time, did you see anybody exit from any point?
No.
Did you see anybody exit from that vehicle and go toward the house?
No.
Now, as far as when you were pulling up to the house, what was the weather like at that point, if you recall?
It was snowing out.
And what, if anything, do you recall as far as sort of accumulation of snow at that time?
It was a light snow, but it was sticking to the ground. It started to stick.
And as far as behind that vehicle, did you observe any sort of marks in the snow from that vehicle?
No.
So no tires or anything that you saw?
Well, tire tracks on the, obviously, but other than that, no.
Okay. So tire tracks on the road in behind that vehicle, coming up to the point where it was parked?
Correct.
And around that vehicle, did you never observed anybody exit the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
You all didn't observe any sort of footprints or anything like that in the snow around them?
Correct.
Now, following the time that you pull up in that area of the mailbox in front of the house, came out of the house.
Julie,
And where did she come when she came out of the house?
she walked right over to Ricky's truck.
And when she come over to Ricky's truck, anyone did she speak with in the truck?
All three of us.
And at some point, did she get in the truck and she went with you or no?
No,
Where did she go?
back inside the house.
Did you see her sort of physically go back inside the house?
I did.
Is that something that your boyfriend at the time, Ryan, sort of specifically waited for her to get back in the house?
Possibly. I'm not sure.
Now, as far as, if you recall, when Julie came down to the truck and when Julie went back to the house, did she leave footprints in the snow or anything that you could see at that time?
I couldn't see, but I assume.
Nothing specifically that you saw?
Nothing specific, no.
Okay. Now, that time period outside of Ricky's truck, talking to all three of you inside, about how long a period of time?
Not long. I'd say 3, maybe 5 minutes.
And in terms, what was the discussion about?
She invited us inside the home, and I had told her that I did not want to go inside. It was late, just wanted to get back home. So she was like, okay, went back in, we left.
And when you left, parked in front of you, was that, as you initially described when you left?
Yes.
And Paul, as far as Ricky pulling away from the curb or pulling away from the house to go home, did he have to sort of back or no?
I don't recall.
Left was that vehicle basically, as you're pulling away, that vehicle's in the same, correct?
Correct.
Now, the vehicle that was parked in front of you, was it running or could you tell?
I could tell that it was running, yes. The lights were on.
And which lights were on?
The, headlights, our light also on.
Now, as far as way house and heading off to home, which way were you facing as you came away from the house? Let me different question. So, when you pull up alongside of the house, which side facing to the house? Is it the driver's side, the passenger side?
Passenger side.
And so, as the vehicle is pulling away in the same direction,
Correct.
the passenger hiding in the house as you're pulling away.
Yes.
And you were looking as, let me ask you this, as far as when Julie left the truck and went back in the house, was she fully inside the house at the time that the truck was pulling away?
Yes.
And so the truck is pulling away, where are you facing and sort of what are you looking at as you are passing by the SUV?
I'm facing the house.
And as you go past the SUV, what, if anything, did you observe within the SUV?
I observed the female driver's seat.
And appear to be the same female that you observed as you were turning onto the road of Julie's house?
Correct.
And what, if anything, did you observe the female in
The driver's side.
so still in the driver's seat as you were?
Correct.
And what, if anything, else did you see as far as she's doing or anything like that?
I didn't observe anything else. She was just sitting there.
And as far as you were passing, what, if anything, did you note as far as the interior lighting within the vehicle?
Yes, the interior lighting was on, so that's why we were pulling away the female in the driver's seat.
As far as no passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street,
I did not see any other person, just the.
and as you were passing by the vehicle, did you adjust how were you looking inside this vehicle?
Not very intently, just kind of as passing by.
You didn't sort of change your seat better within the vehicle, you didn't lean forward, lean back, anything like that?
No.
And after you, that house, where did you go from there?
Back to Ryan's. Correct.
If I may have a moment. You got home?
No, I don't remember.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. November 1st, 2023, February 7th, 2022.
Right.
All right. So it was a full 19 months after by law enforcement,
Correct.
and you gave your statement for the first time at that.
Correct.
The truck that you were in, I can't remember, did you say the truck, was it a Ford F-150?
Correct.
Okay. That was turning left onto Fairview from Cedar Crest. You were
Correct. Yes.
Do you know the names of the streets, or are you just...
I don't know the names of the streets. No. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the town of Canton.
Okay, that was my next question. If that, for instance, that wouldn't really do any good because you don't know the street names.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Ricky was driving, Ryan was in the passenger seat, and you were in the super cab portion of the truck, correct?
Correct.
So you would have been situated directly behind,
I was in the middle.
in the middle seat.
Correct. So
Okay.
between Ryan and Ricky.
Understood. Did you indicate the way and it turned to be its right in front of? Clearly see inside the passenger compartment there was a female driving, is that right?
Correct.
And there was a male sitting next to her.
Yes.
You indicated that by the time you guys made your turn, sped up, made the turn, headed up Fairview, that SUV had already come to a stop.
Correct.
All right. And how far behind that SUV would you estimate Ricky pulled the truck in terms of car lengths? 1 car length, 2 car lengths, right on the bumper?
Yeah, less than length.
Okay,
I would
sorry.
I'd say a couple feet.
Meaning 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah.
That's your recollection as you sit here.
Correct.
Did you notice anything wrong with the back of the SUV?
I did not.
Okay. You saw brake lights on?
Yeah.
How many brakes? Left and right?
Correct. Yeah.
Is there one in the top center?
I don't recall.
Okay. You certainly did not see a full Wrangler outfitted with a snow plow between the SUV and Ricky's truck.
I did not.
Ridiculous question. You didn't see any other cars. There were no other cars between the two of you.
Correct.
Behind the SUV, other than noting that it was there, attention was not necessarily focused on that SUV.
Correct.
There was nothing extraordinary or out of the ordinary about that car.
Correct.
You were there to pick up somebody, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Or at least potentially.
Right.
So I'm guessing.
Sure.
And you knew that Ryan had been communicating with his sister, and so you were sort of expectant in terms of watching Julie Nagel possibly the house. So during those moments, you weren't necessarily paying attention to what was happening directly in front of you outside.
Right.
Okay. You indicated that you believe that the chit-chat happened with Julie Nagel up at the truck was about 5 minutes?
Give or take.
Okay. At that point, was one of the doors opened?
I don't believe so. I think we rolled our way. Julie.
Okay, so you don't recall one of the doors being opened and Julie standing in the crook of the door having this conversation with Ryan?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is that possible?
Sure. Possible.
Your memory not necessarily focused on that, but you do know that there was a communication.
Yes, for sure.
They were talking about whether or not you wanted to go inside the house.
All 3 of us.
Okay, you, Ricky, and Ryan.
Yes.
And y'all were talking about whether or not Julie was going to come with y'all. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was even a discussion about whether or not Julie's mom might pick her up.
I don't recall.
Okay. So the specifics of the conversation you don't recall, but you do know that y'all talked about 5 minutes.
Give or take, yes.
Okay. During the course of that 5-minute conversation, where was your focus?
On Julie.
Okay. Ultimately, the 3 of you did pull away the area where you were parked.
Could you phrase?
Sure. Ultimately, y'all did move, the truck did move past the house and move past the SUV.
Once we left, yes.
You drove by the SUV, you know the light was on.
Could you explain what that
Home
means?
light, the interior light.
Yes.
So you could see it lit up the interior of the car.
Correct.
Late model SUV, probably a pretty bright light you could see inside the car.
I could.
You clearly could see, well, you could see female.
Correct. I only because of.
That was a terrible question. Of course you did. Do you recognize her from that night? See the person that was in the driver's seat, or do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. But the person you did see was a female with long hair.
Correct.
Okay. As you drove by, the interior light was well enough that you could see her, you could see the female clearly.
Correct.
And you could also male in the truck as well, correct?
No, the other male that before they pulled on was parked. But the only person I saw as we were rolling away was the female driver.
So when you pulled away, you looked to your right at your back.
Correct.
The interior, and you've testified to this before, correct? You've been asked these questions in another.
Correct.
And the only person you saw in the interior of that car at that time, all pulled away, was the female,
Okay.
right?
Sure, if I remember correctly.
Mr. Lally?
So, Ms. Maxon, during the time that you were asked about not sort of focusing on the SUV in front of you, say that you would have seen a 6-foot going towards the house?
Correct.
Okay. You were in a vantage point where you seen that, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't see that?
I did not.
Okay. Nothing further.
All right. Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor. Call to call Ricky Danto.